It's time for Survivor Angels, an approach to strengthen trauma survivors. Here, you can escape what draws negativity and engage your positive abilities and the gifts that you've always had. Let's activate your angels. And to help you on that journey, here's Chaplain Jody.
Let's talk about the question that almost everyone asks quietly and almost no one asks safely. Is this my mental health? Or is this a spiritual awakening? Or am I standing in something that doesn't fit either? This question matters more than most people realize, because the answer you land on will shape how you seek help, who you trust, how you interpret your experiences, and whether or not you stay grounded or you start drifting. Now, this episode is not here to sensationalize that question. It's here to stabilize it. So why has this question become so charged? Well, we live in a time where language has collapsed. Mental health conversations have expanded, which is good. Spiritual conversations have resurfaced, which is also good. But the bridge between them is fragile. On one side, people are told, if you're sensing things others don't, something is wrong. And on the other side, people are told, if you're struggling, it's because you're awakening. Both extremes are dangerous. And most people who are asking this question are not extreme at all. They're thoughtful. They're perceptive. They're trying to make sense of real experiences without losing themselves. That deserves respect. So let's say this clearly right now. This podcast is not anti-mental health, and it is not anti-spiritual experience. But it is anti-confusion. And it is deeply opposed to anything that destabilizes people under the guise of insight. So, we're going to do something radical. We're going to slow this conversation down. Because mental health is about function and safety. And let's ground this. Mental health frameworks exist for a reason. They focus on safety, functionality, regulation, coherence, continuity of identity. When mental health support is working well, a person can care for themselves. They can maintain relationships. They can orient in time and space. And they can distinguish inner experience from external reality. You see, mental health language is not about meaning. It's about containment. And containment is not the enemy of spirituality. It's the condition that makes spiritual insight survivable. Spiritual awakening is about meaning and perception. Spiritual awakening across cultures has never been about becoming unhinged. Nope. It has been about expanded awareness, heightened perception, deeper meaning, even increased responsibility, and often, very often, increased humility. Now, in many traditions, awakening is not celebrated immediately. It's tested, grounded, integrated, and observed over time. If an experience increases clarity, compassion, and grounded presence, it is usually considered meaningful. If it increases fear and fragmentation, isolation, or even urgency, it is treated cautiously. That distinction matters. So where do people get hurt? Here's where harm happens. Someone survives something, their perception changes. They feel different in time. They sense more. They question reality. And instead of orientation, they're given a label. Either this is pathology, or this means you're awakened. Neither is sufficient on its own, because survival experiences often produce both neurological and existential shifts. This is not hypothetical. Studies on trauma show increased sensory sensitivity, altered time perception, changes in default mode network activity, heightened pattern recognition. And then you've got spiritual traditions that describe thinning of the veil, liminal states, expanded awareness, and contact with the unseen. Two descriptions. One human nervous system. That's what it is. The two descriptions are both one human nervous system. The veil is not a diagnosis. Let's talk about the veil without mystifying it. The veil, as we use it here, is a perceptual boundary. It's the line between what we automatically filter out and what we consciously notice. After trauma or major life disruption, that filter often loosens. This doesn't mean the person is meant to live unfiltered forever, and it certainly doesn't mean the experience should be dismissed. It means perception changed under pressure. The danger isn't noticing more. The danger is not knowing how to regulate noticing. Angels are not evidence of instability either. Let's address this directly. Across cultures, angels appear most often during crises, during transitions, during disorientation, and during moments of decision. They are not presented as constant companions demanding attention, although I believe they are constant companions. But they're not there always just pulling on your, on your jacket, on your skirt, on your sleeve. Angels don't do that. They are described as stabilizing intelligences, messengers, witnesses, and boundary keepers. When people today describe angelic presence, often after survival, and that is often, they describe them as quiet, steady, grounding, non-directive, not commanding, overwhelming, not demanding belief. If an experience pressures, isolates, or destabilizes, it should be questioned. True support, angelic or otherwise, increases agency. The question isn't then, is this spiritual or mental? Here's the reframe that most people need. The real question is not, is this my mental health or a spiritual awakening? The real question is this experiencing helping me stay oriented in my life? Orientation is the metric, not intensity, not meaning, not symbolism. Orientation. So signs of integration. Pay attention here. Experiences that are integrating tend to deepen presence, encourage grounding, allow rest. That's a big one. Allow rest, rest. Coexist with daily life and reduce urgency over time. They don't demand constant interpretation. They don't isolate you from others. And they don't make you feel superior or the opposite, doomed. They make you more here, not less. Now, this really matters. The signs of destabilization. Experiences that need immediate grounding often involve loss of sleep over long periods, inability to function, fear escalating rather than settling, feeling chosen or singled out, pressure to act quickly, or withdrawal from support. This does not mean that the person is crazy. It means the nervous system is simply overloaded. And overload requires care, not spiritual explanation. Here's why Survivor Angels draws this line. This podcast exists because too many people are falling through the cracks. It's not that they're unwell in the ways systems expect. And they're not spiritually naive either. They're between languages. Survival Angels is not here to diagnose you, and it's not here to do any of those other healing things. It's here to give you orientation tools to help you stay human while navigating expanded awareness. To remind you that you don't need to choose a side. You need to choose stability and then do the work. So let's bring in sacred geometry and order after chaos. And here's something that's really fascinating. After destabilizing experiences, the brain looks for pattern. Sacred geometry reflects this impulse beautifully. The spiral, the flower of life, the vesica piscis. These patterns show how complexity organizes itself without collapsing. This is not decoration, it's information. Healing and awakening do not move in straight lines. They move in contained expansion. Time, again, because it matters. Disorientation often shows up in time. Feeling out of sync ahead of peers, detached from urgency, overly aware of mortality. How many times do you think about death? This doesn't mean something is wrong. It means your relationship to time has matured abruptly. But maturity without grounding then becomes isolation. Integration brings you back into rhythm without erasing what you've seen. What this podcast will never do, it will never tell you to stop. It will never tell you to stop medication. Sorry, flip of the tongue there. It will never tell you therapy is unnecessary. It will never glorify suffering. It will never romanticize instability. And it will never encourage bypassing. And the biggest one of all, it will never shame spiritual experience. Both can coexist. Both can support each other, but neither replaces the other. So, you all know Chaplain sitting here. What's my role? My role is not to convince you of anything. It's to hold the threshold steady. To help you name what's happening and then stay oriented, keeping your feet on the ground and not feeling alone in the in-between. Chaplaincy exists precisely because not everything meaningful fits into treatment plans or belief systems. Some experiences need witness, not explanation. So here's a grounded truth to hold. Here it is, plain and simple. If an experience brings clarity, stability, and deeper presence, it deserves respect. On the other hand, if it brings fear, fragmentation, and urgency, it deserves support. And what if it brings both? Then you move slowly. You ground, you integrate, you don't rush to meaning. And what comes next? Well, in the next episode, we're going to talk about something essential. Why survivors often sense angels first, and why that matters. Not romantically, not theatrically, but structurally. Because accompaniment changes everything. If you've been afraid to ask this question, or ashamed for asking it, let this episode be permission. You're not confused because you're failing. You're confused because you crossed something and no one gave you a map. Well, we're building one carefully. Thank you for being here. Until next time, human first, awake second, and always accompanied. Activate your angels.
Thanks again for joining Chaplain Jody on Survivor Angels. For more information, go to chaplainjody.me. That's chaplainjody.me. And on Facebook at Survivor Angels-Chaplain Jody. This is Dave Schrader. Until next time, sending you off to activate your angels.